with Dena, and we are so glad to have her. She is an author and a speaker and a mom of two sons, ages 8 and 14, and quite a busy woman who also lives with a chronic illness. So we thought we would give you a glimpse into what it could be like when your kids are going through those tween and teenage years and you're living on limited energy, even more so than a typical mom or dad maybe. So thank you for being here with us today, Dena.
Well, thanks for having me, Lisa.
So tell us, what are some of the challenges that you face as a mom with a chronic illness that maybe...
Well, one of the challenges is just, as you mentioned, the fatigue and energy level is very variable for me. I have a couple of different illnesses. I have Hashimoto's disease, which is a thyroid disease, which means it fluctuates pretty widely. So some days I may feel great and other days I may not. We're constantly, the doctors are adjusting my medicines, trying to make sure that I'm in the right zone for optimal energy. But that's a big frustration sometimes, and a challenge for me is because, you know, my boys' schedule, my husband's schedule, life keeps on going whether I feel good or not. And so it's hard to explain to the kids as they're younger. And as they've gotten older, I've been able to talk to them more. So I think just communicating and knowing how to manage my energy and having people that understand, those are the challenges that I face most of all.
Now, you work from home, which is a challenge in itself. Then you have a chronic illness, and then you add kids into the mix. So I can imagine we're just coming out of summer right now, and there's a lot of deadlines and things going on during the summer where you're trying to keep your kids busy as well and just stay, as sane as possible and make everybody in the house happy. So would you say it's harder to work outside the home, or does it certainly have its challenges working at home as well?
Well, I've done both, so I'm thankful that I have a perspective on that I didn't have a few years ago. I've worked outside the home full time. I did that for 2 years in the last place we lived, and it was challenging in a different way. That I had a really supportive husband, and he was working more part-time at that point, so he could do the shopping and the groceries and things like that. He would cook, and I love that. So that part of it was wonderful because I'm not Martha Stewart by any means and never claimed to be, although I'm trying to learn to cook at the grand old age of 42. But working from home is challenging, especially in the summer, because we live in Texas, and that's one of the things that's a blessing and a curse, because the summer is so hot, and it not only affects my fatigue level because it makes me tireder, but then it's also hard to get the boys out and do stuff because we had over 100-degree days for about a month or two. I don't know how many we did in a row this year. So it's, having them in the house is hard in a way because they have so much energy and they want to get out, and I'm trying to manage that and from killing each other because their boys are destroying the house. But then getting out takes energy too. So for me, I tend to do worse in the summer, emotionally and physically, because it's a different kind of challenge. And then also trying to juggle some working from home and deadlines. I hopefully won't take another book deadline this summer. I did it this summer, and it was necessary, but it was very, very difficult. Working outside the home, the challenges there were that I was so tired when I get home from working a full-time job that I felt like I didn't have the energy I wanted to be with the boys. And so we ended up watching a lot of movies and cuddling on the couch, and that's okay. But, when I work from home, I can kind of spend my energy in different ways, and that way I can save some for the boys. Like I can work 2 or 3 hours at a time here and there, work when they're sleeping. So I feel like I have a little more to give. And I loved my job. I was thankful for it. It was working with refugees, and I loved meeting the needs of the least of these. But at the same time, I felt like it was always a struggle on having enough to give my family. So definitely there's challenges in both.
So I know you have some different tips and tricks that you've come to over the years, and we'd love to hear some of those, especially myself as a mom of a 9-year-old who's very energetic.
Right. I have lots of play dates. This is something that I've learned that my 9-year-old, well, my 8-year-old, he's 8 now, he is so social, and I love to play with him. I love his creativity, but once in a while, I need that space or time, and he just talks all the time. And so I've learned that he loves to have friends over, and that way it really helps me in 2 ways, because he's getting a social outlet with kids his own age that he enjoys. I have time to do other things, or I have time to rest or work on a supper or simple supper or something like that. So I do a lot of play dates also. That helps me because I don't have to make sure that the parent of that child is okay, or that home environment is okay. So I try to keep snacks in the house for kids. So that's a fun thing that I've learned to do that really works well for both my son and I. Then my older son is more introverted. His dad and I just bought him a drum set, which could be good and bad, but it helps him get his energy out in a different way, because he's one of these kids that always got in trouble at school for making noises and beating on things, and he needs an outlet. And so we found drums, and drum lessons are a great way for him to get that energy out, and that's something that he can do and be passionate about. And then he's also learning a skill. He's learning something he can use in ministry or in life, and that'll be a real fun thing that he can do. And we have it in the closet. So we close the closet door because it's big enough to put the drums in there, and then we close his door, and we can still hear it, but I like hearing it because it reminds me that he's found something that he's really excited about, and that's a good thing for him. And also, I think the crock pot is the best invention in the world. Like, if my crock pot goes out, I'm replacing it that day. Because what I do is I found all these recipes, and I will put something in the morning when I have a little more energy, and it will cook all day. And then at night we have supper, and there's one dish to clean up, and the boys love it. I've found all different types of recipes. I even found a recipe in a prevention cookbook the other day for salmon in a crock pot. It was so easy and delicious. Pinterest is a great resource. You can find a lot of things on there that just have 2 or 3 ingredients, so I don't have to spend a lot of time preparing, and they're easy to find ingredients, so I don't have to spend a ton of time looking at the store. So those are just a few tips I found. And then I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's working full time for the first time in her married and motherhood life, and she said, "How do you do it all?" She said, I'm so tired when I get home. I can't keep the house like I used to." And I said, "Well, one thing I've learned is just lower your expectations." It sounds simple, but it's hard to do if you're a recovering perfectionist like I am, and like some of my friends are. We grew up with moms that maybe did outside the home, or if they did, they kept such a neat house. I know my mother-in-law is amazing, immaculate house cleaner. And that's something that I struggle about, because I tend to compare myself to her and my home to hers. But she also doesn't write like I do. She that's her thing, is her homemaking is her passion. So also she has some physical challenges, but for me, I've just learned that I can have a little messier home at times, or dust isn't going to kill anybody. I have to say that Jesus was a carpenter, so he doesn't mind a little dust. So if he doesn't mind it, I don't. I'm not going to keep a filthy home at all. I'm not saying that, but we don't have to keep it up to the standards of Martha or somebody like that. A couple other things I've learned the hard way is not to be afraid to ask people to help, because I think people want to help when they learn that you're struggling. And like I said, I have ups and downs with my illness. Some days I feel great, and some days I don't. I've also learned, as Susie Larson says in her book, Balance That Works When Life Doesn't, that when you're feeling good, you take more ground. It's a spiritual concept. It's also something you can apply to exercise. You can apply to writing. If you're a writer, you can apply it to a lot of things. So when I'm feeling better, I'll try to do a little bit more around the house, or I'll try to spend more time with the kids. Maybe play a board game or go outside and do frisbee or something like that. So when I'm feeling good, I'll take them out. We'll do a lot of things that maybe on a day that I'm not so good that I wouldn't feel like doing. So when you're feeling good, take more ground. I think that's a great concept, and it was sort of a light bulb moment when I read that in Susie's book.
How do you find that you're able to balance all of the activities or different events your kids have? If there's an awards ceremony or something very important to them that you have to get to, do you reprioritize some stuff that week so health-wise you can be pretty sure you can make it?
I have had that situation. So far, it hasn't been on anything really, really big, but there's been times that I've had to miss things at school just because I wasn't up to it physically, and they are disappointed, but I think sometimes it's good for our kids to learn that we have limits. I know my kids have learned some compassion and empathy that I don't think they would have learned otherwise. Because I have an illness and because I have ups and downs, they've learned to help around the house more. I really require that of them, not just because I have an illness, but because I want them to leave and get married and have a happy life someday. I'm going to miss them like crazy, but I don't want them to be, men that can't handle a home and know how to help around the house when they have a family. So I think that in a way, juggling an illness along with everything else has helped them to grow as people. I'm prayerful of that because it does seem like such a bummer sometimes that I can't be the mom that's at everything, or that I can't always let them do everything they want to do. But I think now we have a good balance to where, like, one day a week, because we're in a homeschool co-op, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday they go to school, and then on Mondays and Fridays I have them at home. And on Mondays we go to a nearby city where they have a fine arts academy for homeschoolers, and during one day they take art and drums for my oldest, and then drama and music for my youngest. And so, and they have sports and stuff in their co-op during the day on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we don't do a lot of activities at night. We try to have nights at home, and I really have come to love that and enjoy that a lot, even if we're not doing a lot, just for us to be together, have dinner, the boys do their homework, and then we have some TV or reading time. And it's been a real sweet thing, and I hope the boys remember that we weren't always just in the car all the time, running from place to place, because that can so easily happen if you're not careful.
So Dena, do you have any resources that you rely on that you'd like to share with other moms out there who are dealing with chronic illness?
I do. One of the things, the books that I've come to over and over again throughout the years is out of print right now, but it's just been really helpful. It's called Cereal for Dinner. That book's by Kristen Breeze, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I go back to it because it's just really practical, and it's very much a cheerleading book. It says, take care of yourself. Don't feel guilty if you have to grab fast food for the kids once in a while. They're not going to die. It's just very fun and easy to read, and it also has good ideas about illness, and it, over and over again it says, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to tell people that you're struggling. I think in the church, even though we should be authentic and real, a lot of times we want to go out with friends and act like everything's fine, and we don't want to be a burden to people. Some personalities feel that more than others, and I grew up feeling that way. My dad was always this kind of person that's like, God helps those who help themselves, and that kind of thing, which is in the Bible, by the way. But I've learned that it's okay to tell people you're struggling. It's helpful for them to know, because if you tell them later and then they get their feelings hurt, like, why didn't you share with me? Weren't we getting my friends? I wanted to help you. And so that book is really good about that, just giving you ideas on how to talk to people, what to say, how to ask for help, how to even kind of think about the things you need to ask for help with. And then I think, of course, your website, Lisa, Breast Ministries, those online resources are so key, because we can start to feel isolated as moms, even if we're not struggling with things. Motherhood can just be isolating, especially if you work from home or you're a stay-at-home mom and you don't have a big network of friends. So I encourage people to go online, especially to those Christian resources like your valuable website and all the places where people gather online that can you can form your own support group. You've got to have people that get it. You've got to have people that understand you, whether that means people face to face in your life or people online. And another resource I've honestly found that's been very helpful for me is to find the right doctors. For a long time, I struggled and didn't know why, and the doctors kept telling me it was all in my head. But when I found the right doctors with the encouragement of my husband, he kept saying something's not right. You're 30 years old and you're exhausted all the time. He pushed me to look for answers because I just thought, well, maybe this is what it feels like to be a new mom, and this is what it feels like. I'm getting older. But he was like, no, this is not normal. And so he helped me to be sure and find the right people. So I have a network now of doctors and people that I can go to and say, this is how I'm feeling. And they help me. They don't just look at me funny. They help me. They search for answers. And I look at all the areas of my life consistently just to see, am I eating right? Am I exercising? The exercising is a harder one for me because I don't like it. But having those kind of people in my life is key, and knowing that they're going to listen, that the symptoms that I come to them with, they're going to take me seriously. And don't be afraid to be your own advocate. A couple of years ago, when I was working full time, I was having some real severe fatigue that I hadn't had in a while, and went to have a sleep study on the suggestion of a neurologist friend. And lo and behold, I found out that in addition to some of my thyroid issues, I had a sleep disorder. So went and got a sleep test, and then the doctors said it was mild enough they weren't going to give me a sleeping mask. But I went to them and said, listen, this is important enough. Even if insurance doesn't pay, I want to try this, and I want this help because I think it'll make a big difference in my life. And sure enough, they were able to score it a different way, and the insurance paid for it. And I just had to go and be my advocate for myself and say, I need this. This is not something that's an option for me. I have to get good sleep. And I couldn't believe the difference it made. I felt better in the last years than I have in a long, long time. So don't be afraid to go that extra step and just go back to the doctors and say, okay, this isn't working. I need something else. And don't be afraid to learn and grow and find books and nutrition and all sorts of things that can help you, because you're the one that knows how you feel. And you're the one that's going to ultimately help yourself feel better and that you can be for your kids.
Tell us about why it's important to have a support system.
We do. We have a wonderful church family here that we have known for most of our married life. We just moved back, and when we were away from this church family, we were near our own family. And so there was one spot in the last few years where we didn't have as much of a support system. There was about 3 years where it was real difficult because we were away from family. We hadn't made a lot of friends yet, and we were away from this church home that we're back at now. But I found that support system is key in doing all the things that we need to do as a family. Whether I had an illness or not, I would want to encourage women to have a support system, because you just never know whether your kids are going to struggle or you're going to struggle. Life happens and things occur that we don't plan on. And other people are given to us by God so that we can help each other. We don't have to be lone rangers. As I said, I grew up being more self-reliant. I grew up on a ranch, and that whole mindset in West Texas is that you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you do it alone and you don't ask for help, self-sufficiency, all that. And sometimes that crosses over into my life again, and I think, oh, I don't need to bother this person, or they're going to think I'm weak. But I found more and more as I get older that people want to help each other. especially women, we want to be needed by our friends. And so I'm trying to learn to say, wow, I could really use this, or could I help you with that? And give back when I'm able to as well, so that they don't feel like I'm always taking. But I just feel like the support system is one of those key spokes in a wheel. Several spokes in a wheel that I feel like keep me rolling, and that's faith and friends, which is my support system, as well as church. But a good nutritious diet and trying to exercise and just time with the Lord. And then also taking some time for me to do things that I'm passionate about and that fill my tank emotionally. So solitude is one of those things as well. But those are some key elements and support systems right in there.
Dena, tell us a little bit about your website and what people can find there, and the resources you have. And I know you're author of many books. If there's a particular one you think that our audience might enjoy.
Okay. Yes, my website is www.denadyer.com, and I have a book that's been re-released recently. It was a book I wrote when my oldest was young, and it's now being re-released as an ebook with Pathos Press. It's called Grace for the Race, Meditations for Busy Moms, and you can find that at pathos.com in their book section. It's just short readings for moms. You can read them in a couple of minutes while you're in the bathroom, or, just before you go to bed at night. And it has scripture. It's very honest. It's from a place of real struggle, but I wrote it juggling a lot, and just talks about how I found rest and peace in God and through His grace to manage the challenges of motherhood and of life. So I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I really enjoyed it, Lisa, and I admire you so much for all you do and all that you juggle.
Thank you so much, Dena.